it's hard to say what makes somebody, why certain films are selected and why certain films are not. I can only say with regards to Cannes that in competition that it took 30 years, that I feel was way too long, and that was my criticism that I said when I in the speech as well. I really wanted to put forth about the diversity that exists in our country, and especially in a city like Mumbai, which fundamentally is a colonial city. Like, it's a city that was created because the British East India Company got thrown out of Surat, had nowhere else to go. Then they convinced the king to get this as a dowry from the Portuguese, and then they put soil and they made a port, and they literally invited people to come and live there.
In the most brilliant and inspired way, All We Imagine's Life had that kind of almost supernatural ease that seeing follows seeing follows seeing. And it's that feeling you get sometimes when you're so in tune with something that you could almost, but not quite, predict what's going to happen in the next second.
And then some of those scenes made it into the script, which were not in the script before, like for when Parvati and they go to Parvati's house and they have a drink. That really wasn't in the script, but we said let's do a scene of when they arrive. I mean, it's good because both of us are very different in our personalities towards rushes. I think it's always horrible and he thinks it's always very good. So we find the balance between the two.
This the prospect of people kissing for a long period of time. And there is actually something very, very interesting and subversive about it, because that's what happens in All We Imagine As Life. There are long continuous shots of people kissing, and most Hollywood movies don't like that.
Only someone in deep love in real life can make such a beautiful film. So, Ranabir, my question to you is, do you agree with this?
Yeah. I get into trouble for asking intrusive questions, incidentally. I'm not allowed to ask that, but you go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special discussion on Filmkopath. Today, we are thrilled to explore the themes of the internationally acclaimed film, winner of Cannes Grand Prix 2024, All We Imagine As Light, a film that illuminates the intersection of art, imagination, documentation, and storytelling in profound ways. To guide us through this fascinating conversation, we are honored to have three remarkable guests with us. We have Payal Kapadia herself, director of All We Imagine As Light, and the equally brilliant Night of Knowing Nothing, a film that we discussed on the channel with Payal. We have with us Ranabir, Payal's cinematographer and collaborator in the passion for cinema, who has brought her visions on screen for both her feature films. And joining them, we also have with us renowned film critic Peter Bradshaw. Peter, for us, is the face of film criticism in world cinema. Whatever we have known of film criticism and the work we do on our channel is deeply affected by what we have learned from Peter over the years, reading his reviews in The Guardian and now listening to his reviews on his YouTube channel. Yes. We have also heard that Payal mentioned about how she appreciates Peter's work and what a great opportunity it is for us to host all three of you together. Thank you for coming, Payal, Ranabir, and Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I will just start this with a question to Payal and Ranabir. So tell us what it has been like for the last few months since Cannes, like going to a new place, you're winning awards, giving interviews, and then repeat. Has the experiences changed your worldview or as an individual in any way?
Yeah, completely. I think that it's just the film we didn't expect that it would get this kind of warmth from so many different countries, and from America especially, because we never really showed our movies there before, so we didn't know how it would be, but it went really it was a pleasant surprise, the journey this film has taken, and we just really pleasantly surprised and grateful at how it's gone. And because of that, I think that to release a movie like this even in India is not easy, but because of the kind of international voices that supported the movie, we were able to release it in India in a way that we had never imagined before. And I'm really, because for me releasing it in the cinema was very, very important, as you saw on my very active Twitter account. So that was something that I was very keen to do, because I love watching movies in the cinema, and I wanted our movie also to come out like that. So all that really helped us to get get it out to many smaller cities also, like it showed in Dehradun, Chandigarh, Bhuvaneshwar. So, this was all like, firstly, I was just happy that people were buying a ticket to watch our movie. That is so huge. And then that it showed in all these cities in India because of all, the connections that it made with people all over the world. So we are just really glad.
And for us, it is like for you, we are getting to know so many awards actually exist. every day we understand, okay, there's a new award and Payal has won it. It's like a morning ritual for so many of us now.
Yeah, I love the sound of these cinema managers getting themselves and getting their asses kicked because I think that's great. Get out there, make sure they're doing it, not just showing it, but showing it right. Damn it!
Yeah, it is so important. Aspect ratio has become.
Yeah,
Yeah,
aspect, that's. Yeah, I think we've found out all about aspect ratio, and if they haven't known about aspect ratio, they do now. But I think it's great. We've got to get. My friend Mark Commode says that the projectionist in a cinema is the last auteur. He's they're the last people who kind of decide what it is actually happens on the screen, and you've got to make sure that they're not the last auteur. You're the last. I decide what happens. Damn it. But no, I think it's exciting. It's exciting to see the movie kind of proliferate and grow all over the world, all over India, obviously, but all over the world. I mean, I think it's for me, it's one of the great Cannes experiences. That the movie. I when I saw it, I floated out of the Palais. I floated 10 feet above the ground, down the Croisette, and out to sea. Basically, I thought it was so great. It was one of those films that it's a very distinctive kind of experience because lots of films are distinctive and brilliantly successful in their own way. But that was one of those films, and this sounds like a kind of naive or faux naive thing to say, but it's one of those movies that it makes it look easy. And not many people, not some brilliant directors are very brilliant, but they don't make it look easy. Like, as it were, we're talking about Tarantino or Paul Thomas Anderson. You watch that movie, you think, wow, that looks difficult. I don't think I could do that. That looks really difficult. All those cuts, all the clearing the rights to all that music. Wow, that looks hard. Whereas in the most brilliant and inspired way, All Where Matches Light had that kind of almost supernatural ease that scene follows scene follows scene. And it's that feeling you get sometimes when you're so in tune with something that you could almost, but not quite, predict what's going to happen in the next second. And you think, yes, I get it. Yes, I see. I understand. And then afterwards, that wonderful feeling that I used to have when I was a kid, when I would read a book or see a film that I loved, I was thinking, I think I get it. Not I get it, and not, no, I don't understand it, but I think I get it. I think I do. I think I do. I'm not sure, but I think I do. And it was such a lovely experience, Cannes, and I'm so grateful to Payal for giving me that experience, which I've watched the film again, and watching the movie again is a deepening and enriching experience to watch that film again. But I mean, I have questions of my own to ask the director, but I will leave you to I'll leave you to ask the questions.
No, for us, it was like, we were all elated that Payal's film has gone to Cannes, that too in the competition. And then when the reviews were coming out, that morning, I remember I was quickly going and seeing in The Guardian if Peter has wrote something. And then when I saw he mentions it as the glorious film, then is when the anticipation for which award is it bringing home started for us. Yeah. But Peter, I would like to ask you about, you mentioned about Ray Classics, The Big City and Days and Nights in the Forest. So how did you relate to that, if you can talk about it?
Well, again, it's part of what I was saying before is that the same feeling, or almost, if I can use this phrase, a vernacular sense of almost a conversational narrative procedure that everything that happens seems like a natural and unforced human development from the thing that had happened before, which is rightly or wrongly a feeling I get from Satyajit Ray. I mean, I'd like to ask Payal herself. I mean, she must have had ample opportunity to be bored with Western critics saying, "Oh yeah, Indian film. That's like Satyajit Ray, right?" I'm just thinking, yeah, sure it is, but not necessarily. I don't. I mean, I'd love to ask her what her relationship with. Is it a simple relationship? Is it a complicated relationship? Whether whether we are on the wrong track by just immediately reaching for that comparison or not.
Well, I think for us, and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't speak for you, but Ray is, of course, a very important filmmaker. And especially the Calcutta trilogy are the three films that I really connect to, because I think, especially in a film like Pratibandhi, which is the adversary, Ray sort of starts going into this kind of a non-fiction verite camera feeling of the streets, but
Right.
also has these dream sequences, where he has this fantasy of his sister, and it's the character is going through these different sort of mental images that he puts on the screen. So
Yeah.
in that sense, for me, this movie is something that I learned a lot from, because of this going from objectivity to a subjective and a very psychological camera. And I studied this film a lot.
Right.
While thinking about our film also, because also it is about meandering and loitering in a city for young people. It's a film
Yes.
about a guy who doesn't have a job, and he's sort of, going from one thing to the other, just sort of floating around. He's young, and he's also in the beginning of a love, which is, doesn't quite go anywhere. So I felt that there were a lot of connections to the characters in both in these films. And yeah, I just, for me, formalistically, it was one of Ray's movies that I connected to a lot, because I like very much cinematic forms that go from this internal to external
Right.
gaze.
Right.
I loved it a lot, this film. And of course, I mean, Days and Night in the Forest is an epic. Is it's just the
Yeah.
greatest movie. So
When you were working on the movie, did you spend a long time at the script stage with that film, or did you did you work almost? I mean, I'd be fascinated to hear how much work you did on the day. I mean, did you think, wow, you got on location, you thought, actually, that is great. I mean, what you and Ranabir said, actually, you know what, that looks amazing. Let's do that. Let's refigure what we've got to think and just do what we're going to do on the day. Or did you have it all schemed out in your head at the beginning?
well, the problem of having less money for a movie is
Yes.
that you can leave very little to chance.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
Interesting paradox, actually. Yeah.
yeah. So what we did though is, because we had factored in that in the pre-production. So during the pre-production, we would go to the locations a lot and shoot scenes with a small camera with our friends, or just kind of observing the location, taking pictures, and incorporating that in our mise en scene. The
Right.
colors of the monsoon, we did it over 2 seasons before, so it was like an ongoing process while writing the script. And some of the interactions, I think that's where documentary as a process really helped us, because
Right.
in non-fiction processes there is a lot of process involved, because you meet people, you get something out of that, you go back, you edit it, and you script again. So
Right.
while we were writing the script, I was also meeting a lot of young women in Mumbai, especially nurses, and I was doing a lot of interviews, and I think that some of the nuances of the gestures of those interviews and interactions found their way in the movie. Because,
Right.
for example, there is a scene where Anu talks about, there is a nurse, Crystal, who older man exposes himself to her, and she freaks out. And that was actually a story told to me by two young nurses. One
Right.
was a very confident nurse, very sort of like
Right.
experienced, and
Yeah.
and the other was also experienced but way more timid. And
Yeah.
we were sitting in a very crowded coffee shop, and the way she was telling the story in this loud way, and the other one was like, please don't talk so loudly.
Yeah.
So we were thinking a lot about this, private space, public space, talking about
Right.
something like this,
Right.
and the personality of the character. And then when we were driving back, Ranabir was shooting with his mobile phone, the city, and just out of fun, like just as an exercise, because I love doing exercises, we put it on the timeline, and I put the interview also along with it as an audio, just to see how the tones of the two voices feel
Okay.
with the city without sound
Yeah.
of the city. And
Yeah.
that's where the sequence of Anu telling the story came.
Oh, right. A classic kind of iMovie kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I really enjoy the process of writing like that, because I think that formalistically, what encounters we have are so much more interesting than what I at least can think of sitting in my apartment. So
And when you started working on the movie, how did it come along? I mean, when did you think to yourself, you know what, I'm going to make a movie which begins in a hospital? Was there a kind of spark, a kind of eureka moment?
yeah, actually, when we were both students at the film school at the Film and Television Institute of India, I had to do my final year project, which was like we call it a diploma film,
Right.
and I was writing it about two roommates who are very close to each other physically, but far apart in how they think about themselves.
Uh-huh.
And I think because I grew up in a lot of hostel situations where my film school was also a hostel that I lived in, that I wanted to make this movie. But I was also spending a lot of time in a brief period in hospitals because of some family situations. And I
Right.
was the one who was in the waiting room for, a long time. And when you are in a waiting room in a hospital and also a film student,
Right.
it's everything is interesting.
Everything is material. Right.
Everything is
It's
material.
all material. You can use everything.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's the good thing I think about what we do, no? Like
Yeah.
making movies makes life more interesting than cinema.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Because you can reach into life and rewrite it to your own your own specifications.
Yeah,
And
I mean, taking a bus ride, taking a train, just the way the weather is that day or how somebody was dressed can spark so many
yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's a real privilege
Yeah.
to have that.
And that was when you started to write. That was when you started to not to write necessarily, but when you started to research. And you did. How did it work with getting in touch with nurses? Did you put something online or on Facebook, or just say, does any nurse out there want to talk to me about their lives?
Oh, it was in the initial stages, I started trying to talk to the nurses at the hospital, but they will not talk to you when they have their shifts. So I would try
Right.
to catch them on their way back
Oh, really?
and things like that. And so I got some people's WhatsApp contacts, and we would
Oh, yeah.
chat sometimes and things like this. And then what we started to do was I started asking around, do you have friends who are nurses, or, is there like people amongst my friends? I started looking out for people who knew working nurses and who'd be willing to not think we are some kind of weirdos. Asking these strange questions, and that way we met a few friends of friends and things like that who were nurses in Mumbai.
Right.
And after that we sort of got in touch with a college that was teaching nursing in Kerala, and
Right.
we met a lot of young nurses there as well. And then there are a lot of nursing agencies in Mumbai where we asked if there would be some nurses who'd be willing to talk and things like that. So we found lots of different ways, but it was a long time. Like it was 2 years of meeting
Was
people.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, that's a long time. It's a long time to be in production with no money. To be thinking to do
well,
that.
one thing that helped us was the European funding system.
Oh, yeah.
We could apply for like a writing fund, and then we applied for a research fund. So we
Right.
had a little bit of finance to, continue this
Right. Right.
lifestyle.
Right. And also, I mean, what I again, another lovely thing about the movie is the look of it, and how amazing Mumbai looks in it, and how it's transformed in a way by the film. It looks like Mumbai. I mean, I don't know that I have been to Mumbai. In fact, I've been for the Geomami, the film festival, but and it's made me want to go back. Certainly made me want to go back even more. But it's wonderful the way it looks and the use of light. Everybody talks about the use of light, and of course that reverberates in my mind with the title itself. And that, of course, Ranabir, that must have been your, to a great extent, your vision. I mean, was that? Could you, before the movie started, did you close your eyes and run the movie in your head in the way that Alfred Hitchcock is supposed to have been able to do? Or did you think, did you just create on the day, or did you have an image in your head already?
I definitely had an image in my head, in the sense that, again, I was working with Payal for a long time before we actually shot the film. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of trials, as she was saying, that we already had conducted. And we collected a lot of images from different films and photographs. So we had a plan in mind. But so I think that we also did a little bit of grading and created a look for the film before, so we had something to go by on set. So we definitely had a very strong plan. But then when you're on set, it's not always things don't always work out the way you thought. Or I think that you always have to be open also to what is immediately in front of you. I don't know if the next film will follow the exact same process again, or there was a lot of anxiety which led to this process as well. And I think that it was a lot of fun, though, to follow it from beginning to the end, and to see where we started and how we thought about something and where it ends up with.
Yeah.
With Ranabir also, he likes to do a lot of testing. So we did, because we very much initially wanted to shoot on celluloid, but finance is a big problem. So that was out of the question.
Too expensive. Yeah.
So we did, like, 1 year before we shot, we did tests with the production design team, and but I think a lot of filmmakers do that, where we shot with two different cameras, different lenses, different kind of filters, different lighting, and different colors in the production design, and we did these kind of scene tests, which now if I put them out, they'll be hilarious, because we have a stuffed toy for a cat, and God knows, it's really funny. But
That's
just to kind of get a sense.
That's the extras of your
DVD extras.
You've got about 45 minutes of solid material there.
There's some scenes acting as well, so it's really hilarious.
But that's very interesting, because me and Shubhadeep, we were also talking. Your films has a lot of fluidity, right? From documentary to fiction, you keep on moving on. Even when we discussed last time, A Night of Knowing Nothing is not a documentary as such. There's so much of fiction elements to it. But now when you put it to the rigidity of a set, how do you do that negotiation?
Very frustrating. Also, because when you shoot in Mumbai, it's like you have to have a set of at least 80 people, because that's the unit, because of the union requirements, which we respect. But it's a small movie, so for me, having come from shooting with like 4 people to shooting with 80 people,
Wow.
It was a lot. That is why we had to be very planned, because I was so. I mean, for me, it was a whole new kind of system to work with, and having the plan and having that. And fortunately, we had a very good team, like the production design team, even the makeup team and the costume design. Everybody was very involved. It was like a nice collaborative process. So when that is the case, then, it just becomes a little bit easier to function on that big set. Of course, I love fluidity, which is why in some scenes we decided, forget it. We just went with 3 people on the streets of Mumbai and shot like a documentary, because it was impossible to recreate like Muhammad Ali Road, which is such a busy street where they go to eat kebabs. How can you recreate that? It would have been completely
so hard, isn't it? It makes me think, when Fellini had to rebuild the Via Veneto himself in Cinecittà, because it was impossible to do it in the real thing. So he built it a kind of brick by brick exact replica, and said after a while that he liked that one better than the real thing. This one is so much better than the mess of the real thing. This one is, I can relax. This is the real Rome here in this.
Yeah.
But tell me about what.
One day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of also the street is like level. It's not bumpy. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
What sort of a director are you? I mean, I'm fascinated that you had to run a crew of 80 people. When you direct actors, do you retake a lot of times, or did you do a lot of? I mean, I guess I may be wrong that you didn't do much rehearsal. It all felt so real that almost as if you weren't rehearsing at all, as it was if it was happening for the. I mean, that's my own naivety. But did you do a lot of rehearsal? And when it came to it, were you kind of strict with them when they weren't giving you what you needed, or did you think, you know what, that's not what I thought I needed, but let's go with that instead?
I have to admit that I did a lot of rehearsals and I
Right.
take a
No,
lot of takes.
I'm sure you did. That's how it makes it look unrehearsed, is it? The more rehearsals you do, but yeah.
Yeah, because the way we did it was I really we stayed together. Divya, Kani, myself, and Chaya anyway lives in Mumbai, so she would keep coming. We all
Ridu as well.
Ridu as well, the boy playing Shiaz.
Uh-huh,
We
uh-huh.
all stayed together for like 3 weeks, and we did it like we were preparing for a theater production. So we would do
Uh-huh,
every scene two, three, four times in different ways,
uh-huh,
with different exercises that we could do as theater exercises. Um,
uh-huh.
what is the character thinking when they are saying this line? Can let's do two scenes before this scene, which is not in the film. So
Right.
things like that we did, and I gained a lot from this process because when you
Mm.
have such great actors, they
Yeah.
give you a lot.
Yeah.
So we would shoot those scenes, and Ranabir and I would analyze and think how would we shoot it on set. So we made the shot design then, thinking about how each gesture was done, and then some of those scenes made it into the script, which were not in the script before, like for when Parvati and they go to Parvati's house and they have a drink. That really wasn't in the script, but we said, let's do a scene of when they arrive and, what could
Right.
Oh, wow.
possibly happen. And we tried
Yeah.
this out. And it was so fun because, I mean, just their chemistry is so great that I decided to keep it when we shot that part of the movie. So yeah, we did a lot and lots of rehearsals. We did some theater exercises for 2, 3 days just to kind of become comfortable with each other. And on set also, I did a lot of takes.
Oh, you did? Oh, great. I'm glad.
Uh,
I'm good. I always like that. I was thrilled by that in a director, in that gives it the full sort of Stanley Kubrick. I'm going to do 90 takes now. And I think it was Michael Curtis who, I think it was when he did Wuthering Heights, he asked David Niven to do 110 takes.
Wow.
And at
That's
the
a
end of
lot.
it, he just said, well, if that's the best you can do, we'll use the first one. Okay, let's move on.
Ouch. Yeah, we
I
did
think
a
it's
lot
I
of
think it's
takes
great.
too. But one thing that we were very planned with was the shot design. So it gave us a bit of time, like because we had the scene like we didn't have too many extra shots within the scene.
Mm,
So it was really about doing one scene, but trying to get the performances that we wanted. So
yeah.
that way we saved a bit of time with like moving around the camera too much and things like that.
Right, right, right. I mean, is it challenging just logistically on the first day when you have 80 people looking at you? Because a friend of mine, Sam Mendes, told me once that if on your first day, if somebody asks you a question, no matter what the question is, you can never say, I don't know, right? I don't know what it always strikes me it must be incredible stress
Yes, it is.
to before you say, okay, action.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there are so many moving parts in a
Yeah,
set. And of course, there are 80 people, which is 80 different personalities.
yeah.
So it's, but you get used to it, and it's the last dictatorial job that exists.
Yes, it's the last great dictatorial job in culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
No one else is allowed to kind of
Yeah. I
tell
can
them
be
what.
wrong and nobody will say anything. I mean, later
Yeah,
I will suffer myself, but that's in the editing, and I will watch
yeah,
the rushes and think,
yes.
why?
Watching the Russians, and when you watch the daily, did you think, "Wow, this looks good," or "Oh, damn, I need to do that again now"? Was it a stressful thing watching because it's a watching the dailies for a fiction feature is presumably a very different experience from your previous
Yeah.
essay documentary. I mean, it's a different kind of work. So that must be. Was that stressful? I mean, you had to start first thing in the morning with the dailies. Is that right? Or that used to be the case, didn't it? You would have to do them
Yeah,
first thing in the morning.
we would actually watch them at night because
You
after the shooting day, because we had a DI on the set, so they already convert the footage and they can give it to us within 2 hours of the shooting, something like this.
We
Right.
didn't all the footage maybe of the day, but we would watch half of the previous days and half of the day we just shot.
Yeah.
It was both of what you're describing. It was both. In some cases, it put your mind to ease, but in various
Yes.
cases also it was
Yeah.
the opposite.
We did reshoot some scenes based on the dailies,
You
which,
did.
yeah,
Yeah.
some
Right.
shots, some parts of scenes we did redo the next day if the set wasn't broken already. Um,
Right. Right.
so, because that's also part of shooting, right? It's so, once the set is gone, it's gone, and
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
bad for you.
Yeah. You better get it right.
Yeah. So we had some of that, like,
Mm.
but I mean, it's good because both of us are very different in our personalities towards rushes. I think it's always horrible, and he thinks it's always very good. So we
Right.
find like, a balance between the two.
Talking about shooting, how good was your ensemble? I mean, I see you have listed all the three actors in your list of best acting for the last year, Peter. I see
Oh
all
yeah.
of
Yeah. Oh, all of them. They took, the three female leads in All We Imagine
yeah.
like took up most of my list. It
We
was
were really
but
good.
so
Yeah.
great. They're all so great. And of course, Ritu as well as Shiaz. But certainly all the three female leads I think were all amazing. I was going to ask Payal actually. My friend Jessica Kiang, who wrote a rather brilliant piece for Variety about All We Imagine, is like she came up with I thought was a very funny idea. I'd love to hear your view on it. That Prabha and Anu were like Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. And she went, wow, I guess Pyle must have been inspired by Jane Austen. I'm thinking,
Well,
well,
everybody
yeah, maybe. I mean,
I'm very inspired by Jane Austen.
did you like, were you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, growing up, we read a lot of Jane Austen, and
Uh-huh.
it was very much
Yeah.
part of our life because I think I grew up in a boarding school, and reading Jane Austen in
Oh, you
boarding
did?
school, I think is a everybody read it. So definitely, and I think there is something of the morality
Yeah.
that we have inherited from the British in India, and was also very much part of the movie, the kind of morality that both the women have in the film. So I didn't make this connection before you said it, but I think Jane Austen is very much part of our life, no, like growing
Oh,
up as
right.
teenage
Okay.
girls.
Well, I mean, I'm not being entirely facetious when I say that there is a sisterly relationship in
Yeah.
a way between Prabha and Anu. That there is a
Yes.
kind of big sister, little sister,
Yes.
sensible,
Yeah, sensible
rebellious
and between.
energy between them. And I think there is something to be said for the idea of the sisterly relationship
That's true.
between them.
Yeah.
And the other, again, I suppose it's potentially rather spurious of me to find English literature connections, but because I mean, that was my own background. I studied English literature. I when I was growing up, there were no film studies.
Right.
You could be hit over the knuckles with a ruler for suggesting film studies where I was studying, but I found there was something very Shakespearean actually in the final scenes. Not necessarily a particular reference, but the idea of something magical coming from the ocean, for me, is like, in a general way, for me, it feels like The Tempest or A Winter's Tale of those late Shakespeare plays. I mean, that's something I wanted to ask you as well. If you ever thought that, or am I just making that up?
I mean, I have to say no for Shakespeare, but
It's okay.
I was very influenced by like Marquez, because
Okay.
there is this large tragedies, and then there are these sort of um, surreal, not surreal, whatever, magic realistic elements that
Yeah.
come. And there
Yeah.
is a lot of projected desire with those elements. And I wanted to sort of explore that. There is a story which title right now it's not coming to me. It's a short story about, I think it's called Esteban or something like this, where there is a man who floats into the from the sea, and all the
Ah,
women in the village, they start saying, "Oh, he's so handsome. He must be, his name must be Esteban. He must be such a nice man. He's so tall. I'm sure the houses that he lived in, he would always bang his head on top, which made him very humble, things like that." So
right.
it becomes like a kind of a canvas to project all their feelings. And
Yeah.
I like this idea very much, because even in not India is a big country, but a lot of folk stories that I grew up listening to, which were women's tales, you
Ah,
quite often could not talk about desire, and the husband, or the male person of interest, could not be addressed directly. So he would become some kind of phantom, uh,
ah,
like a
yes.
ghost in
I
a
just,
tree, or something like this, where the woman's desire could then be spoken about, because that is still okay in some senses, than to
right.
talk directly to the husband.
Okay,
Um,
that's interesting. I must read it. I just looked it up. It's called The Handsomest Drowned Man in the
the
World.
handsomest
Um,
drowned man. Yeah,
I
yeah.
no, I've got to be honest. I hadn't read it, but I'm gonna.
Yeah, so I got a lot from, this feeling of, when something, in literature and in cinema, these devices help to talk about things that you can't talk about in words. And it gave me that sort of um, possibility of exploring Prabha, who will not talk about anything. Like, she's really
Hmm.
always listening. She's
Yeah.
never really articulating how she feels, except once when she says no to the doctor. But that
Yes.
also is
That
is such
also.
a complicated moment for her. So I felt that how would she be able to sort of have this catharsis in a situation where she does never allows herself to, speak what she feels.
Yes.
So
Yes.
manifesting a dream man with
Yes.
this sort of shimmery, scaly body, um, I felt could be one way to address all those feelings in her heart. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of miraculous. It feels it's one of those things. Again, it's a very difficult thing to show in a movie, which is a miracle,
Mm.
something which is
Hmm.
it's supernatural, but it's not supposed to be a horror film. You're not
Yeah.
supposed to be scared. And it is real. It's supposed to be really happening, and yet you're also supposed to be thinking, is this real? Am I dreaming? Is somebody else dreaming? Are we a dream that somebody else is having? And I thought that was such a wonderful ending. Uh, and I love the idea of leaving the city. There's something for me is very uncanny and mysterious in a way of leaving the city at the end for a village by the sea. There's something very beautiful in that. It reminds me a little bit of something like Truffaut's 400 Blows, which kind of a way did the same thing. It leaves Paris for the seaside. It's very different though. That there was a different energy to that. But I thought there was something very beautiful in leaving the city behind, going to a little village, and then manifesting the city again as something in everybody's mind. That was
Yes.
almost as if the city was something we just have to remember at the end. Were we ever in the city? Did we dream the city? Has the movie in fact taken place entirely in this location, and we just imagined it? And I love that kind of dreamy kind of reverie aspect of the end of the movie. It's a lovely way to end it. There's an inspiration in it, I think.
And while you spoke about Pratidandi a few minutes back, I was very much reminded of Pratidandi and how it ends, how Siddhartha goes out of Kolkata and
Yes.
hears this bird,
Yes.
which he
Absolutely.
was not, he was missing. That
Yeah.
light is something they also perhaps gets coming out of the city, is the way I connected to Ray, actually.
But neither does he want to go to the village in that movie, and
Yeah,
neither does Parvati want to go to the village in our
right.
movie. But it is also the kind of anger with the city that we had, uh, which made us say that we can't do this part of the movie in the city.
Hmm.
It is also something to do with time, I think, the temporality of the first part of the movie and the second part of the movie, where the first part has this sort of continuity of days passing by. There is really no time for oneself. It is a kind of a capitalistic idea of time. where there is no autonomy over your time. It's scheduled by the hours that are your work hours and the time it takes to get to work by train. And you come home and you just have enough time to make your food, maybe wash your sari and go to sleep.
Yeah.
So nobody has time to sit and say, "Woe is me, my life in this situation." So we wanted to have a different feeling of time, and of course, cinema is one medium where that can be done, and that is what is exciting about the form. For me, we wanted to try that we have the two totally different temporalities, and what does that do in the mind of the audience, where the first part is so much faster, and the second part is just like one elongated day where the scene with the drowned man is almost 10 minutes. It's the longest scene in the movie, where I wanted to make it feel like time had stopped or become infinite. And that could only happen when the first part was the way it was, at least in my mind, to
Yeah.
have this different temporality to exist. And I feel that when I am in a dream, I never know how much time has passed. And I wanted that sort of feeling in this scene where you are not sure how much time has passed or which sense of time it is. And so that was the kind of thought process that I had in my mind between the feeling of a very objective first part and this kind of woozy, dreamy second part, which really has to do with this extension of time and having the time to yourself.
So in a way, you start with it being kind of a documentary, and you take it to become a fantasy film by the end
Yes,
of it.
yes. Like going from a verite to a.
But also you can get that documentary feel right through to the end. But
Yeah.
it's almost as if you're making a documentary about fictional characters. That you're,
Yes.
you're making that also you're making a documentary about what's happening in Mumbai, but also what's happening at the end. It's like it's the only way you have it. It's just a docu-realist way of, my God, isn't this incredible? This fabulous person that emerged from the sea, and we're making a documentary about that too.
Yeah, because all the actors in the village are actually people from the village, like the woman
Right.
selling fish and the women, people who come for this. They were all people we convinced to come. So in a way, that was also something. I don't know, but it is that they are not
Well,
actors.
yeah, it's serendipity. I was going to ask Ranabir as well as you. I'm sorry if you've answered this question before. Are you guys from Mumbai? Are you from the city, or are you from outside of the city?
So Payal is from Mumbai.
Okay.
I grew up in Calcutta, but I live in Mumbai now.
Oh, okay. So I just wondered where your feel. Obviously, you both have this marvelous feel for the city, for the energies of the city and the look and the feel of the city. And I wondered if that was either because you were from the city, or maybe because you weren't from the city. Maybe it was because you were completely outside and alienated from the city. But no, obviously not. You were kind of born and raised in the.
Well, for me, I was in a very particular position because even though I'm born in Mumbai, my family is there. I never grew up there because I was always in different cities in India. And I went to film school in Pune for 5 years. And then
Right.
before that, I grew up in the south. So I was always in and out of Mumbai to visit my family. So
Right.
I think I always had that very sweet spot of being from there, but also having the perspective of leaving a lot and coming back. And I
And you
think when
and you
you
were from the south. You went to the south to go to school. Is that right?
yes, yes.
Right.
So I think when you keep coming back to a place, you see the changes more.
Right.
Uh, and it doesn't, you notice more things, I feel at least. And yeah, I think I was never really forging any uh, like connections to the city to do with my childhood or, something like that. So it was always about coming and going and
Right.
sense of flux.
Yes. And Ranabir, did you study cinematography, or did you study fine arts, or photography, or
No, I studied cinematography. We
you
went
did?
to school together, so
Right. Of course, yeah. But yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, of course. I just wondered if you'd come to it before that, whether you'd studied at school, whether you'd studied fine arts, or before that particularly. No, I wonder
not
what
at
brought
all.
you to cinematography in the first place.
I studied. It was the first specialized thing that I studied was cinematography, and
Right.
but Payal is somebody who grew up in a way with a lot of knowledge of fine arts, at least like somewhere. She didn't study it formally, but it was something she grew up with because her mother is a painter, an artist. But so I think with Payal we looked at a lot of generally art of various kinds, and that definitely has helped me a lot
Yeah.
with the work
Right.
I do.
I
Right.
think the name of the film comes from one of your mother's painting, is it?
Yes.
Oh, that's very
Oh, that's
interesting.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating. The painting is called All We Imagine Is Light.
Yes.
Oh wow! I must. Is it online anywhere? That
Yes, it's online.
or is it?
You
I'm
can check it out.
so sorry not to have known
No, no, no,
that.
not at all. But the Malayalam title of the movie is a kind of a word play. It's Prabhayai Ninacha Dallam, and Prabha is the character's name, but also means
Ah,
light.
okay.
So it's a kind of a word play because it is everything that Prabha imagined and everything that you imagine as Prabha, which is light.
Oh my goodness,
Right.
that's a lot is revealing itself to
Yeah,
me. Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay.
It's
Because
like the
I mean, I
imagination
got
of
the
Prabha. It's
yes,
kind of like a Hong Sang-soo title.
I
Everything
got
that
the line.
Prabha
Yeah,
imagined.
I got the line about if you're working in a factory and you can't imagine what light is anymore because it's so dark. But
Yeah.
no, I didn't. I didn't. That's okay.
So,
Um,
Payal, since you brought it up, the Malayalam title of the film, so your film is clearly multilingual. There is Marathi, there is Hindi, there is Malayalam. Any particular reason, like you went for Malayalam to be like the prominent language in your film? Is it due to the majority of the star cast, or was it due to your love for Malayalam cinema, which all of us share?
It was a lot of those things. If I have to be very candid, it's because our last movie played the most in Kerala. So we said, let's make a movie that will also play now. That's not the real reason, but it's the we when we started the initial research, most of the nurses I met were Malayali. So I said that let me continue with this with what I have what I'm seeing around me, and I don't speak Malayalam, which is a pretty ridiculous thing to do to make your first movie in a language you don't speak. Uh, but I had very good dialogue writers and with me all the time, and we were working on the dialogues for almost 2 years before we shot the movie to make it more believable. So that was the reason that I thought. Also, for me, this language plays a very interesting scripting device, and it's the same with because I feel like because in India we have so many languages, I wanted to use it as a part of the script somehow, and especially in a city like Mumbai, which you hear so many different languages. You travel by the local train, you're going to hear so many different languages. And I feel like language can play an interesting role in a city because it can be one a bit alienating, like it is for the poor doctor. Um, because he doesn't speak the language that everybody
right.
else speaks and he's not able to learn, and he's a bit more lonely because of that. And I think that happens to me too when I'm in a city where I don't speak the dominant language. I do feel a bit more lost, uh, but it also creates privacy because if two people, if you only you and I know a language, then we can talk in a very public space and say something which is could not be otherwise said loudly, but we
Yes.
can say it because probably not too many people will understand what you're saying. And that when in a city where privacy is such a privilege, language can give you that. And also the film is based a lot on misunderstanding because in the end the older woman speaks only Marathi, and it's like Prabha is not fully understanding. So I felt like language being something that is so removed from the Western, like from
Mm.
Mumbai area, to be a language like Malayalam would help with all those scripting elements. Like my previous movie was in Hindi and Bangla. Um, so I think language is exciting scripting device.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, Payal, because you talked about this subtext of privacy in public spaces in the film. So the way Anu and Shiaz like look out for a place to be intimate, or the we find the unease when Prabha talks to Dr. Manoj. That is so even like in a city like Mumbai, which is like the maximum city where you have like so much of opportunities, so called. If you could talk about that subtext, the lack of like privacy even in the public spaces in India, and how do you approach that in your film?
I mean, it's especially in a city like Mumbai, there is public space, private space public space also is become so limited. Like, and that is one of the questions in the film also because we are shooting in areas like which used to be earlier mill areas where the cotton mills used to be, which is Lower Parel and Dadar. And if you actually go to those areas now, you will find that there used to be so many places like parks and recreational activities which were for the public. And now, because that has become prime property, it is the most expensive land. Those spaces are being completely taken away, and the mills itself have become luxurious shopping malls. And who really feels like going into those? The access is something that is limited. So the first thing that goes away in a city is public space. That is the one that's encroached the first, and it people have less and less access to it. So yeah, that is something that we were concerned about in the city, and this access basically. And also for a lover couple, like it's expensive to get a hotel room every time, and
Yeah,
you can't,
exactly.
you
That's
don't have the
that's
money for it. So
that's right. Exactly. I mean, that's why it's liberating to go to, in a way, liberating for the younger couple to go to the village, because basically there's a place where they can be intimate. I mean, it's not. I hope this isn't too vulgar a thing to say, but one of the interesting things about the movie, and I was talking to some friends of mine about what is and isn't erotic in the movies, is this the prospect of people kissing for a long period of time. And there is actually something very, very interesting and subversive about it, because that's what happens in All We Imagine As Light. There are long, continuous shots of people kissing, and most Hollywood movies don't like that. They're almost puritanical about that. If a couple is kissing, that means we're either going to cut to a supposed sex scene, which isn't going to be shown anyway, or they break off the kiss. But the fascinating thing about All We Imagine As Light is that there is an extended and I think very subversive and fascinating kissing scenes. Kissing scenes are very subversive in the movie, and you hardly ever see them. But there's some great kissing. I don't want to sound like a pervert here, but there's some great, fantastic kissing scenes which just are held on, and you just have to sort of live with this very languorous and it's not wrong to say, I think, ecstatic scenes of kissing with nothing else in view. They're not necessarily going to upgrade to full sex, but it goes on and on and on, and it's amazingly erotic and sensual. And I'm just interested how you played that as a director. Did you just say, we'll just let you do it, and when I say cut, you stop? But I'll just, I'll let you do it.
Well, actually, this kissing, when you have had to struggle with kissing in public spaces, especially in a country like ours, that is pretty much what you can do. Otherwise, you have to find a better spot. So with the limitations of the mise-en-scene and the location and everything, this is what they can do. So we had thought, actually, we had written a narrative in the graph of the kissing also.
Really?
Like what is happening and
something else for your delete.
No, as in like how Anu is thinking about it, because she's the one who's always initiating it. She's the more experienced kisser of the two. So there were a lot of thought that we put into that. Like it is, the receiving of pleasure also, where it is Shiaz's expression that we stay with and how he feels in one of the kisses and things like that. We also had a very good intimacy coordinator. She was really, she herself is an actress. So she understood what I wanted from the scene, and she was able to it was just very few of us on the set on these days because everybody was kept a little far away. And we had all discussed in great detail what is going on in both the characters' minds at this time and things like that. So that really helped us a lot.
The execution.
Yeah, in the execution. So it didn't become like clumsy or... we wanted it to be something really sweet and endearing that you feel good about, like these people being together. You want them to be together.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly didn't look clumsy, but the great thing about it is it didn't look the opposite of clumsy either. It didn't look super cool and super sleek. It looked like real people kissing, and not like, as it were, Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman kissing. Do you know what I mean? Wonderful though that kiss obviously is, but it looked like, again, it was sort of documentary, real kissing of real people and what happens when real people kiss, and are maybe they feel under pressure because of what happens if somebody sees them, witnesses them kissing, but on the other hand, they just don't care. That it had a wonderfully real kind of tenderness of intimacy and reality. So I thought that was great. But also, as I say, I think it's transgressive and subversive as well. It's not simply sweet. It's kind of explosive in a way.
I wanted to talk about this to Ranabir especially, and obviously you talked about this young people being in love is probably one of the most beautiful things which we can experience, and we experience this through your film, Payal and Ranabir. And there was this we put out a review of All You Imagine Is Light a few weeks back, and one of the best appreciations we have heard for your film came from one of our subscribers, and he said that only someone in deep love in real life can make such a beautiful film. So, Ranabir, my question to you is, do you agree with this?
Yeah. I get into trouble for asking intrusive questions, incidentally. I'm not allowed to ask that, but you go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that Payal is a romantic. And as a director, that's one of the first feelings that often crops up in various scenes. So, especially with this relationship of Anu and Shiaz, it's something that both of us, we wanted to make it, as you were saying, we wanted to make it seem sweet. We wanted to have this feeling of an early romance, something which is light, where you feel light on your feet. And that's something that I think that almost anybody has experienced at least at some point and can relate to. And it's something that we were definitely trying to bring out.
Yeah. I mean, I think so, and it does. I mean, I think you have to be a romantic to make a film. I think you have to have some romance, even if you are making a very commercial film. You still have to be romantic at some level, I think. But that's how I felt. Is that it's a weird experience being in love. I mean, I think being in love, maybe it's less oppressive being in love in your early 20s than in love in your teens. I don't remember being in love in my teens and feeling that as lightness. I remember feeling that as an incredible ordeal. But that's not but when I was in love in my early 20s with my girlfriend, now my wife, that was a wonderful feeling of lightness. And it just it's amazing because it feels like you've abolished gravity. But certainly that feeling, and that's what reminded me. It really reminded me of that.
I also felt like listening to Emma Hoy's Sege Mariam Gebru's music connected the piano motif that is in the movie. Whenever we see Anu and Shiaz, we try to use it like a lead motif, and it keeps coming back because that also made me feel that lightness. And ironically, she's a nun. An Orthodox Ethiopian nun made this music.
Maybe it's not ironic.
Yes, maybe it's not.
She's a bride of Christ. I mean, for God's sake.
Yeah, so I felt that way listening to that music, and then that's how we decided to use it.
Right. Well, it's amazing. I mean, I felt that love in different ways from all three women, from different angles and different dimensions and different kind of concepts of love from all three. And I love Prabha's relationship with the doctor. There's something that a wonderfully kind of gallant feeling, but also the crisis. Should she just abandon her husband and just think, my husband is never coming back from Germany. I have this nice guy who's interested in me. Let's just, explore that. Yeah. And that's a very real thing. It feels, I mean, and as I say, I don't mean this as a criticism, but it feels like a sort of soap opera, but a kind of in a good way, a kind of real way, because, romance between doctors and nurses in soap operas, TV soap operas, is the most thing we all know about.
Right.
But the great thing about it is, as a trope in this movie, is that it's evolved. It's hyper evolved from that to something which I felt could be real, especially when she opens the rice cooker from Germany and thinks, what on earth does this mean? There's no message to attach to it. What is it? Is this a nice thing to happen, or is this just the most insulting payoff I could possibly have received? I'm never coming back. Here is a rice cooker. I mean, what sort of a guy does that? Who on earth does that? And thinks that this is somehow appropriate. It's an appalling thing to happen. And some of the energy is she just has to kind of, in a way, stop thinking about it. The insult that it implies. It's a terrible thing to do. So it's as I say, if there is a soap operatic aspect to the drama, it's only in the sense that it's real and there is a narrative compulsion that we understand from our own lives and making decisions and dilemmas and crises. Mm-hmm. And there can hardly be a more profound crisis than, do I simply abandon my marriage? And not on the basis of what? On the basis of nothing at all, really, because I've received no indication from my husband what he really wants to do. And just start again with the guy who seems to be a lovely guy. But, who knows? Nobody can really know.
I wanted to talk about this point of diversity you were touching upon, Payal. You spoke about language, and there are so many different people that we see in the city of Mumbai. And we are also in a country which is talking about, one nation, one election, one bill, and all of that. So it also comes across as a political statement in a beautiful way. If you would like to elaborate on that or talk about it.
In a fundamental way, yes, of course. It is an opposition to what you're talking about. I don't think that this particular thing comes in a very calculated manner. Mm-hmm. I think that it's an aspect of Mumbai which we really like, and Payal has sort of grown up with also, where there have been multiple cultures and multiple identities who not exactly coexist together, but together in a larger sense, like in the city. So this is something which we find, again, like in some ways, a romantic idea. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. But
yeah, absolutely. Like for me, it was more obvious, clearly, that it was a point that I really wanted to put forth about the diversity that exists in our country, and especially in a city like Mumbai, which fundamentally is a colonial city. Like, it's a city that was created because the British East India Company got thrown out of Surat, had nowhere else to go. Then they convinced the king to get this and as a dowry from the Portuguese, and then they put soil and they made a port, and they literally invited people to come and live there. And we know the history of Mumbai in the past 75 years has been a complex one. And so I wanted to sort of highlight the fact that the city is made by people who've come from various parts of our country, and we need to see that, and we need to respect that heterogeneity or that diversity of the city and of all big cities. And it's not just a discourse in India, it's a discourse all over the world of immigration and the sort of fingers being raised as to what immigrants do to a country. But in our case, it's national migration as well, which is also a big point that has been brought up in so many years in a city like Mumbai, but in other places also. So yeah, it was something that I definitely wanted to talk about, that that this is a characteristic and we need to embrace it, rather than, because it just makes us better and more enriched in a society.
Just, I want to ask about the Cannes acceptance speech as well. Like you mentioned about the festival to be more open, more welcoming to Indian cinema, and we really thank you for that. We often hear from Indian filmmakers that it needs to be more than a good film to make it to the festivals like Cannes, Berlin, or Venice. What is your story? Probably has been different, but do you feel that there is a gap in the way we see these cinema in these festivals?
Your journey is very different from what we hear a lot of this speak about. There are a lot of other checklist items that you have to click before you can take a film there. But for you, it has been very different. So do you see there's some gap somewhere?
This is a complex question in the sense that I think most films which are made in India, they come from there is an inherent filmmaking culture which is very strong in India,
Yeah.
and every state has a different kind of voice, and if various communities within that state will also have a voice. Now, it's it's and this kind of cinema, the way films are made for people who are viewing that industry, who are viewing films in that industry. So in some senses, from the very onset, it's not something which uh, often people in the West understand, from very simple things like the topics itself, and more prominently the form. So, in that sense, that automatically kind of creates a barrier from in Indian films and what people are looking for. And every festival has a particular gaze and what they're looking for. And that's that's the base of what I want to say. But Payal, if you want to continue.
No, I mean, yeah, I think it's hard to say what makes somebody why certain films are selected and why certain films are not. I can only say with regards to Cannes that in competition that it took 30 years, that I feel is was way too long, and that was my criticism that I said when I in the speech as well. But overall, every festival is different. Every festival has a different curatorial choice. We've always shown at Venice. Indian films have always been there
Berlin.
in Berlin. We have a great selection this year also. There is Natesh Hegede's film in Forum, which I'm really excited about. So we are. So I think that this that thing of in Cannes not being there for 30 years, an Indian movie was a bit something that I feel that is we could have had more.
Yeah, I was surprised. I only realized that when you said that this was the first time for 30 years. I think I sort of thought that there had been Indian films in Cannes. I mean, I think there have been, but out of competition,
Out of
in the
competition.
official selection, but not in competition.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, I've been going to Cannes for so long now, and even I can't work out what the mysterious inner sanctum. I mean, I know Thierry quite well now, but even now I still don't understand what is the inner Vatican sanctum is for deciding what goes into competition. It's one of the most mysterious things in international cinema is the competition selection. I don't know why really it shouldn't really be any more mysterious and weird than deciding for Venice or Berlin or Toronto, but for Cannes it is there is that kind of Vatican mystery that it's something about the high Mandarin quality of French high culture, which is why I kind of love it in a way. Or I'm sort of still I'm so such a devotee of Cannes. Is the strange mystery of what's been allowed into competition, and the annual theatre of announcing the competition list and then putting in 2 or 3 other films just later on. You think, wow, why couldn't you just wait it and just do the whole thing together? No, every year it's the same. Every year it's the whole thing. And then suddenly, a couple of other things we just put in as well. Are we thinking, really? You could have just. Yeah. But I know. I mean, I'm very sorry and ashamed to say I still have not seen A Night of Knowing Nothing, despite the fact that it was obviously a prize winner in Directors Fortnight. So that's something I'm sorry to admit I still have to catch up with, and I'm really keen to do that.
I think the BFI is going to re-release it.
Yeah, I think they have. But I'll have to get them on disc now. But I have a digital projector at home, so it's not.
Okay, super.
It's not as bad as you think.
It's such a dark film. If you watch it on a screen, you'll just see your own face.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful film. It's a beautiful film.
But yes, I mean, it must be. It's an amazing experience, I think, for a director to be in Cannes, because, as I say, I love the tradition, which they still do, of which I don't think any other festival does, of in the official screening, the gala screenings. We're all assembled in our black tie, and we're all in our tuxedos. Everybody's looking so great, and Thierry leads the director and the equipe up the stairs. Amazing feeling up the stairs, handshaking with Thierry and a few mysterious other people who are very big in French culture, and maybe you don't quite know who they are. But you have to kind of say, I'm very pleased to meet your acquaintances as well. And you go in and you always say, Mesdames et Messieurs, and then your name, Payal Kapadia, the auteur's name. Nobody else is important. It's not the producer, it's not the star, it's the director. And Cannes still believes in that colossal introduction to you. I mean, that must be an amazing experience.
Terrifying also.
Walk down the stairs and to do that thing where you have to walk halfway down, stop. You've got this guy with the TV camera right in your face, right in your face as well. And then you've got to turn around and look up to the gallery as well and sort of just, thanks everyone.
Yeah.
No, that's an amazing performance that you have to put on. And I think a lot of directors don't realize that they've got to put on this gigantic red carpet performance.
And how cool were all of you, in that premiere, walk up to the premiere. We were so loving it, the way all of you dance and come up to the theater.
We actually created a montage as well of like cutting all those scenes and we put it up on our channel because it was so refreshing.
I was so nervous, and then because the girls were so happy and free, and the actors, they were so, I don't know, they just really have a thing for life. And I felt a bit first like a school teacher saying, no, we shouldn't do all this. And then after that, I said, no, this is just great. And I feel better. Like my anxiety is a bit lesser with this good feeling. So then that helped me.
No, it's a marvelous feeling. It must be a kind of out of body experience as well, yes. Especially when you think what has happened, what just happened. Do people like it or not? What's happened now? Well, I mean, unfortunately, of course, for a long time, the reviewers were allowed to publish their reviews before the gala screening, which led to all sorts of bad feeling arguments, terrible arguments. Now, fortunately, that doesn't happen. Although, of course, it adds in a subtle way to the disorientation of the director. They're thinking, well, I still don't know what's going to happen now. I still don't know what people think.
What with Peter Bradshaw, right?
Oh my goodness! You never had any worry for that. Oh my goodness, I loved it so much. I loved it so much. I thought it was great. That was easily my favorite film. My favorite film of last year's Cannes. I loved it so much. I would love to have seen you. I mean, I loved Anora as well. I mean, I had no problem with Anora getting the Palme d'Or. I mean, the last couple of years I've been very grumpy and in a bad mood about films winning the Palme d'Or that I don't approve of. For all the world, as if they've got to wait for me to give it the okay. I've been in a petulant foot stamping rage about films that I haven't liked winning the big prize, but not this year.
Yeah.
And Peter, since you mentioned that, what are the other films from last year that you really enjoyed? You loved them.
Oh, we imagine that. I tell you, a movie I loved actually was Cannes. I think it was out of competition, which was the Chinese director Liu Ye's film called an unfinished film about COVID, about the experience of COVID, and I thought that was a terrific film. I loved that movie. I loved it so much. I thought it was a wonderful film. And it, I still think it hasn't got distribution or anything. I don't see anybody in London picking it up. But I thought it was a fascinating film. It was one of my favorites. One of my favorites in Cannes. The other film I loved, it was in Director's Fortnight, actually. It was called Gazer. But I loved that. I loved, as I say, I loved All Imagine, obviously. I loved Anora. I loved, I'm not sure whether it came out this year, which is Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World. Radha Judah film, which is an amazing film in a way. It's Radha Judah, and nobody else could have made it. Nobody else could have written it like that, or done it in that strange, weird, querulous, mad, kind of attention-grabbing way. But it's a fascinating film. Yeah, the movie I'm thinking of is called Gazer. It's by an indie US filmmaker called Ryan Sloan, and it's about a kind of cognitive disorder whereby you don't know how much time has gone past, and it's by somebody who it has a kind of Rear Window-ish vibe. It's somebody who witnesses something, but because they have a cognitive disorder, they can't process what it is they've seen. Because they have this disorder that they can't They have no idea about what time has gone past. It's called dyskonometria. And I thought that was a really fascinating movie. It was in Director's Fortnight. Again, I'd love to see somebody pick it up. I'd love to see the London Film Festival do something with it. But again, I don't know. See, very often you go to festivals and you think, wow, that's an amazing movie. I guess I'll see it again when it comes to the UK. And then you think, wow, what happened? Nobody likes it, but that's what happens sometimes. You go to see these films and you think, wow, that's great. I suppose it's up to me. I have to write about them in The Guardian and persuade people to go and see them. But yeah, I love that. Some movies I've been slightly baffled by, I have to admit. I don't know what, I don't want to put a downer on films, but I was slightly baffled by Emilia Perez. So some people absolutely love it, and they think that that's the best film they've ever seen before in their lives. And I thought it was pretty good, but I'm not sure that I'm totally down with it. But it's, you know what, it's doing amazingly well, and I have a great love for Jacques Audiard. So I think he's a fascinating character, a classic kind of French auteur, in a way that he thinks that everything is his, he is allowed to do what he likes. Here in the West, we're very nervous about staying in our lane and whether or not some stories are ours to tell. Whereas Jacques Audiard has not received the email on that. He just decides if you try to explain to him, no, Jacques, you're not allowed, you want to make this film about Mexican people and trans people. That's not your story to tell, Jacques. He would just say, what do you mean not my story to tell? I'm an auteur. I'm a French film director. Everything is my story to tell. Thank you very much. And I think there's something very, very refreshing about that in a way, because he's never heard of these strictures that we and The Guardian spend our time worrying about. He's never heard of it. He hasn't had the memo. He just thinks, yeah, of course I can do what I like. It's fine. And he gets away with it because he has this marvelous kind of authority, that imperious, in a way, he's one of the last of the great kind of, you will do as I say, French auteurs. Even Olivier Assayas is sort of more tentative than that. But it was another great Cannes experience, Emilia Perez.
Right. Before we call it a close this discussion, Payal and Ranabir, I want to know from you two, what is under the wraps? What's happening for you next? Are you thinking about your next film or any other venture? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
We hear about a Mumbai trilogy. Is that cooking?
Yeah, I want to do a Mumbai trilogy. 3 movies on the city, but it's very early still in the process, and we are still in a very early development stage. So I have nothing exciting to reveal on this conversation yet.
You can't reveal it too soon. You can't.
But in America, they always expect you to have a movie already set, and I just feel like I'm very slow. I take time to make films.
Yeah, they want you to pitch that right away.
It's not possible. But
no.
Yeah. So then sometimes I just wing it. I say anything. And I'm making a sci-fi music.
Just make something up. Say you're going to make a Western.
I'm making a Western.
Yeah, I'm making a Western. It's set in the High Chaparral in 1840. It's great. Jake Gyllenhaal signed up for it.
Yeah, that's the one. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, we got to be careful because they'll phone you back and say, we've got 10 million for you. And then you'll have to make it.
Oh no, that could be a really funny movie about this regretful Indian director who just made up something and now she has to make the movie.
Now you have to make it. It's like The Producers or something like that. You kind of make up some ridiculous film and now, they've got very excited and now you have to make it. No, that's exciting.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to that already.
All right, so at least we got something there. So yeah, we'll see.
Who knows, though?
Mumbai trilogy. Well, it could be a tetralogy, or you might want to make more Mumbai.
Or just a diptych.
Fast Kieslowski style saga, which goes for 10 films. That would be amazing.
This has been truly, truly amazing to have this together. Thank you, Payal,
Thank
Ranabir.
you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Peter.
It's
Thank
so
you so
wonderful
much.
to
Thank
meet you,
you.
Peter.
It's lovely to meet you guys, Ranabir and Payal. It's a wonderful, wonderful treat and privilege for me to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.